Welcome to the Networking with Michelle podcast, the show dedicated on providing you the how-tos of marketing and networking strategies. Here we believe in the Jim Rohn quote, success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Networking with Michelle. I'm your host, Michelle Gomez. As always, want to thank you for listening. Hundreds, thousands of podcasts that you can be tuning into, but you have chosen me, and for that, I am very humbled and appreciative. Listen, if you're in Houston this week, September 19th through the 21st, People Fund, they're putting on a 3-day conference. It's called Innovation Week Houston. Check this out. It is free, a free conference for 3 days. This conference is for entrepreneurs and nonprofit leaders. If you're looking for engaging panels, interactive workshops, and thought-provoking sessions designed for you, the business owner, you, that leader that's looking to grow your organization, this is the conference that you need to attend. And yours truly, I have the privilege to present to them a new session on Wednesday, September 21st from 4 to 5 p.m. I will be doing a new presentation called 3 Nuggets to Connect with Confidence. 3 Nuggets to Connect with Confidence, where I'm going to discuss how to overcome social pressures, the number one way to build your confidence, and understanding the business you are creating. But check this out. I'm not going to say I'm nervous. I'm doing new content based off of my new book. Yes, my new book called 31 Nuggets to Connect with Confidence. And in this presentation, I'm going to discuss 3 things that will allow people to connect with confidence. So I'm excited. I'm going to do another dedicated episode just to catch you up with a few things about my new book and the new transition that I made in my business. I'm really excited. As always, I'm grateful to just step out, try new things, and, share that on the show. But for today, the special guest is a personal life mastery coach. I'm pausing because I was absolutely blown away by the conversation that we had. RJ Hodges, unbelievable guy. And we talk about self-awareness. That's my thing. We talk about self-discipline, creating a daily routine, which is something that I've just started practicing this month, and it's been working wonders in a very short time. How do you get to a spiritual awakening? What's the number one, in his opinion, what are the number one or challenges that entrepreneurs are facing? We dive deep into this show. But this is the thing. Beside it being a great episode, at the end of the show, RJ was generous enough to make a special offer to you, the listener. And please stay to the end of the show, write the instructions down, and take advantage of the special offer. But more importantly, make sure you beat me to it, right? This guy, this conversation, this interview was absolutely amazing. So I can only imagine what he does to his coaching clients. And, hopefully you take advantage of what he presents to you today. Without further ado, RJ Hodges. Hey everyone, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Networking with Michelle. Today our special guest is RJ Hodges. He's a professional speaker, certified personal mastery life coach, and he is the co-author of the best-selling book Mission Unstoppable, where he partnered with George Fraser. Y'all know I love George Fraser, and Les Brown. He is also the author of You Can Practice at the Game, The Art of Mastering You, Volume 1, and an audiobook series called Winner Status. RJ, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So, personal mastery life coach. I'm all about trying to fix my life. So how did you get involved in that?
You say you're trying to fix your life. Isn't everybody? That's the thing to do. Um, to be honest, it really started with me becoming an inspirational speaker, and I think life coaching is kind of like the cousin to inspirational speaking. Like most,
Mm.
speakers end up becoming coaches, and personal mastery over time, it became something that I started to look at. Okay, let's cut through all of the wonderful secrets and gimmicks and tricks and all of this stuff that's kind of in the marketplace when you get into the self-help industry. And I wanted to find out, how can I really change? How can I really get better? And my most famous quote of all times is, nothing ever worked for me until I started working on me. And that's
Mm.
really where it all started. I started working on myself. I stopped with shortcuts. I stopped with trying to, I'm gonna quickly get over here and, programs that didn't work. And I finally just said, okay, let me start to invest in working on myself and looking at some of the hard things that I don't want to face. And it was through that the whole, personal mastery and life mastery coaching came about.
Can you tell me, I guess, what was the defining point that you're like, let me explore this life mastery a little bit more so? And it doesn't even have to be on the professional end, but just becoming a student before you became the coach and the speaker.
Crying. Crying is
Mm.
is where it all started, and I say that jokingly, but
Mm-hmm.
honestly, just being at a place of frustration and not knowing what else to do. I started my first business at the age of 18 and had some really good success. But then, of course, being 18, you still are an 18-year-old. So, a lot of things I just didn't know. I didn't have any personal development. We just were what we call today, we were ignorance on fire. And
Mm.
sometimes when you're ignorant and you're on fire, some things will work. And it started to work. And we started to have some success early on, but then it kind of bottomed out. And then when that happened, I went into this soul searching thing. What do I want to do with my life? Who am I? Who do I want to become? And it really all started, and I don't tell this story often, but it is written in the Mission Unstoppable book. It started one night in the back of a church, in a chapel. On a Friday night, probably about 10 or 11 o'clock at night, this chapel would open and you could just come in there. It wasn't like a formal service, but you could just go in there and just kind of pray. And I always say, if you're in a chapel on a Friday night, you hit the bottom. You know what I mean? Like, you are, something is going on,
Mm-hmm.
at the age of like 19, 20 years old. Like, typically a Friday night, you're out, you're having a good time at that age. But I'm in this chapel in the back, kind of praying and crying because I don't know what to do next. My mom had, I was right at 20. So my mom had passed away from
Mm.
colon cancer. Everything just wasn't going the way I thought life should go. I'm like, I didn't sign up for this,
Mm.
basically. So, I'm kind of praying. I'm in the back of this chapel. And the only thing I got out of that whole situation was kind of this epiphany, and it was born to win. I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know why, but the only thing it meant to me at that point was, no matter what's going on in your life right now, you were born to be better than this situation. Don't let these situations and these things that you're going through, and even the fact that you don't know where to go, don't let that define you. And when I kind of, came to that epiphany, I went with it. I didn't know what that meant, but I just held on to it. And that was the start of me saying, okay, you know what? I know I can win in any situation, but I got to become the person that can do that. And it opened that door to me starting to read books like Napoleon Hill and
Mm-hmm.
subscribing to people like Tony Robbins and Les Brown and even George Fraser. It started me to just saying, you know what? I got to become this person that I feel that I am on the inside. I got to figure out a way to become that person, to bring that person to the outside. So that was the beginning of all of that.
I feel like recently I've had a come to Jesus moment regarding my
Oh,
business.
okay,
But do
okay.
you think that if someone, let me say high achievers,
hmm
because usually the high achievers are the ones that are in pursuit of that life mastery. Can you master your life without a spiritual awakening?
That's a good question. And you know what? I'm clapping for you right now because nobody And nobody has ever asked me that question. And I always tell people I'm a very spiritual person. I'm not necessarily a huge religious person,
Mm-hmm.
meaning I don't necessarily tell people what to subscribe to.
Right.
And I've coached and worked with clients that believe in all types of different things and some that don't believe at all. Here's how I answer that question. I think at some point you have to at least understand that what Wayne Dyer always says is that you're not just a human being having a spiritual experience, but more so you're a spirit being having a very human experience. So I think even if you don't want to go anywhere spiritual or subscribe to a particular doctrine or whatever the case may be, I think at some point you have to understand that I am spirit. I
Mm.
happen to be inside of a physical body, which is the reason that I physically can comprehend matter and things here on this physical plane, which is Earth. I got scientific a little bit. I'm not that scientific, but that sounded like I know science. But anyway, so I think you at least have to go there first, because I think if you go there, it allows you to have the proper perspective to start to master your life.
Mm.
And it allows you to start to see, okay, if I'm spirit, then certain things are eternal and certain things are temporary. Because in order to master your life, you got to distinguish between what's eternal. What are the things that are core? What are the things that are wired to my core? That's the fiber of my being. And what are the things that are temporary? The things that may be materialistic, or the things that may need to change immediately in order for me to be better or to go higher. So to answer that question, to be spiritual in the sense of I need to subscribe to some type of doctrine, or I need to acknowledge some type of spiritual presence. Maybe, maybe not. Do I? Yes,
Mm.
1000%. Do I encourage that? Yes, 1000%. I encourage people to take that journey and find out what spirituality means to them. But I think bottom line, if nothing else, you do have to recognize that you are spirit having a human experience.
Wow. Look, we're only 10 minutes in.
I told you I got stuff. I got stuff to say all the time. Now it's just, and that's where, to me, that's where it comes from, because I did get in contact
Mm-hmm.
with spirit. So, I make a lot of jokes and I have a lot of fun doing what I'm doing, but I never make light of the fact that I believe that a higher power is flowing, and it's something bigger than me that flows through me. Because sometimes I say things, and I'll be perfectly honest, I never said them in the way that I've said them before.
Mm-hmm.
And I learn in the midst of saying them. And I'm
Oh
like, and
yeah.
yeah, so, and I know that that's not me. That's not a level of intelligence. That's not something you can read in a book. That's not something you can gain from listening to a lot of stuff. That's something that's coming from a universal higher force than yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I guess on the other side of this equation, in general, why do you think people put limits when it comes to pursuing a level of fulfillment?
You know what? I used to say that people put limits, but I think the world puts limits on us. We're
Hmm.
limited from birth. And when I say that because my theory is you come into this world with a blank chalkboard, which means that you're born and it's pretty much a blank canvas. You don't really know anything. You haven't really perceived anything. There are studies about babies perceiving things in their mother's womb and all that good stuff. But for the most part, you come into this world with a blank chalkboard. But if you start to watch what happens from an infant to a small child to adolescence to your teenage years, we don't grow higher. We grow smaller. So it's almost like you come in with this blank chalkboard and you're a giant. Find me a 2-year old. He or she is a giant because there's nothing that they can't do. A 2-year old right now or 5-year old right now, if I say, hey, can you jump out of this tree, hit 17 backflips and land on your feet? What is their response? Yes. you know, 5 years old, you have no limitations. You are a giant within your mind. Now, take that same 5-year old and let's give them 10 years. They're 15 now. And I asked them, can you jump out of this tree, flip 17 times and land on your? No, that's crazy. You can't do that. You'll break your knee. You'll break your leg. Why? Because as they've gotten older, society has started to write on that chalkboard, and it has told them what can't be done, what can't happen, what is impossible, what shouldn't be. And I think those are the reasons we have limitations. I don't think naturally we do have any. I think society conditions us for the limitations. I wrote something in my book and I said, it's amazing how, most kids in school right now that are elementary school, if you follow them and you ask a kid in elementary, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's amazing. It's like, I want to be an astronaut. I want to cure cancer. I want to do this. Somewhere between elementary and graduating from high school, it's, do you still want to cure cancer? I mean, well, right now I just want to get into undergrad, and I heard that it's so hard to get into medical school. So I'll be happy if I'm just able to, work in a medical office
Right.
and make $30,000 a year. And please don't confuse what I'm saying. There's nothing wrong with working in a medical office and making $30,000 a year. The point is, how did it go from curing cancer to that?
Well,
That's a
RJ,
big jump, you
yeah,
know?
but I feel I like what you're saying, but there has to be, how do we get our skills? How do we develop skills to complement our beliefs, right? Because I think of a situation whether you're 5 years old and you can, you know, flip through, climb up the tree, do your six flips and stick the landing. Because
Right,
a lot of parents are not going to be like, they're not even going to enter their child into gymnastics, right? Where you have some old
right.
bios. They're like, at 5, 6 years old, the teacher saw something in her. So it's like, and I'm not a parent, so I guess that's why I'm struggling with this.
hmm
But when are we going to look at that child, identify they have some kind of talent and nurture that skill?
I mean, that's the whole thing right now is what we're trying to shift this paradigm into helping parents and teachers and all of us
Mm,
try not to stifle a child.
mm,
Try not to stifle that growth and that creativity. And there are institutions now and places and parents, and I have a couple of clients that are parents, and they're doing that. They're allowing their children to try things, and they're listening to them, and they're not, when their children talk and they say things that are just huge and crazy, they don't tell them, they don't tell them to stop. They kind of just let them play that out. I think that's where it starts. But going back to my chalkboard theory, I think it also becomes our responsibility when we do become conscious that the things that have been written on our chalkboard, it's not now conducive for the person that we want to be. And that was my reality. My reality became, at some point, when I figured out born to win, when I figured out that I want to be this giant of a person who I see inside of me, you know what? That's where the life mastery came in, because I
mm.
understood that nothing about my belief system matched that giant person. Nothing about what I've been taught, nothing about what my parents and society and my teachers, nothing about what they've written on my chalkboard of life supports this idea. So now I got to figure out how to erase my chalkboard and start rewriting my beliefs, rewriting my story. Because if I don't, then you end up where most people are today. Most people today, we want one thing, but we're the total opposite of it.
Mm.
You want something. I mean, think about it. We hear it all the time, and I'm not excluding myself from it, because I hear myself sometimes. Most people will tell you, "Hey, I want financial freedom." And in that same breath, they say, "But they don't pay nothing on my job, or we
Yeah,
never get raises,
yeah.
or man, us poor folks, man, they don't care about us." What?
Are they
So you
spending and not
want one,
saving?
right? So you want one thing, but mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and even sometimes physically, you're the total opposite of that thing. That's where the life mastery comes in at, because once you recognize that, you recognize, okay, I got to start rewiring who I am in order to match and align myself with the person that I really want to be.
I agree with that. A couple of months ago, I did a video just to summarize it. And I stated that, parents have to do better, because what happens is kids, they have an interest in basketball and singing, and the parent, they may do little things, but they don't go 100%. And then they feel like, well, if you're going to become a basketball player, that's a one in a million, right? But then I think
Hmm.
about LeBron James, Beyonce Knowles, like they went all in.
Right.
Like I don't know what was in their parents to allow them to sing and play basketball all day, but we
Right.
started hearing about them at the age of 15, 16, 17 years old, and they've been all in for the past 15 years pretty much. And I'm just thinking, like, parents, what if you see that skill, that talent in your child, and you just go all in and support them? They can be that one in a million.
That's true. That's true. And you know what? I think more and more parents are understanding that simply because times have changed.
Mm.
When I say times have changed, when you look at even I don't know how old you are, and I don't want to date myself, but let's just say if you're mid 30s or if you're even early 30s, for the most part, we grew up in a system of stability. So our parents who were, mostly stable, wanted us to be even more stable. So the stable plan when you're in a system of stability in those times was go to school, get good grades, get a degree, get a degree, get a degree. I said get a degree right. So get a degree, and you probably gotta get like 12 of them, but make sure you get a degree and find yourself somewhere in the $100,000, $200,000 range worth of debt, get a job paying maybe somewhere in the neighborhood from 40 to maybe 60, $70,000,
Mm-hmm.
depending on where you live in this country,
Mm-hmm.
and the cost of living that's associated with where you live, and ride the wave. You know what I mean? Hold tight, stay at that job, do the best you can, and hold on tight. That was the stability plan. That doesn't really exist anymore, not in that way. So I think more parents are understanding that I cannot set my child up for that
Mm.
because it doesn't matter how many degrees you get. You can have a PhD. You're not guaranteed today to get hired by a company and be there for the next 30 to 40 years, stable and walk away with a pension. It just doesn't happen. So I think because the times are changing, more and more parents are understanding I have to let my child explore. I have to let them, you know, dive into their natural talents. I still want them to be stable because we're still a very, society that wants stability, and there's nothing wrong with stability. But I think a lot of parents today, they're starting to understand because times have changed. We got to do something a little different. That one in a million shot to be the next LeBron James doesn't seem so one in a million anymore when the flip side of that coin really doesn't even exist anymore.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, I mean, so and that's my optimism. That's my hope. I do see a lot of parents, and I also do youth one-on-one coaching, anywhere from 14 to 18, and working with some of these young people, their mindsets are totally different. Even the ones that want to go to college, they don't see college as I'm going to learn this skill to go get a job. They're now seeing it as I'm learning this skill to brand myself to be a force in the marketplace. And hopefully that is the mentality that we're starting to breed into our young people today.
All right. So when it comes to personal life mastery, do you think getting 8 hours of sleep plus a daily routine prepare someone in that right direction?
I don't know if 8 hours is mandatory because how I break this down, and I work with clients on this every single day. Sleep is great, rest is better. So
Mm.
I always have this big thing with sleep versus rest. What's the difference? And most people go, it's the same thing. Not really, in my opinion. And anybody want to critique this? I'm open to it. But to me, sleep just happens. Sleep is involuntary. You will fall asleep naturally at some point. The body just kind of does it. But rest takes a little effort. Rest takes you knowing how to put your subconscious mind at a place of peace. because most people sleep, but they still wake up just as tired as they were before they went to sleep. Why? Because the subconscious mind never shut down. It never got to a place of peace. So you're sleeping, but you're dreaming about bills, and you're dreaming about what you need to do, and you're dreaming about kids need shoes, or you're dreaming about, the news that you just saw and 10 people got shot, or all of this stuff is running through your subconscious mind. So you never really rest. So I'm not going to say whether you need 8 hours or not. Of course, I'm not a doctor, but I will say that 5 hours or 6 hours worth of rest will trump 8 hours worth of just plain old involuntary sleep any day. And that's just my opinion. I get probably about 5.5 hours of rest every single night. And I'm on 10 most of the time. I'm on 10 versus some of the people I'm on 10 right now. I'm just trying to contain it. But but I'm on 10 most of the time, more than some of the people that I know that get 8 hours, because I finally understood how to put my subconscious at a place of peace and kind of let go of the cares of the day and really rest. And that's really important.
What about the daily, maybe a morning routine?
Yeah, you got to have a routine. I mean, the routine that I talk to my clients about all the time, and I'm sure they get tired of me saying it, but I always tell people everything about your daily routine starts with one word, and that's order. How do you start?
Mm,
How do you end? The two opposites of your day. And I always say start in a place of peace, meaning start with some form of meditation, some form of quiet time. Start in a place of peace. Don't just wake up and then you're off to the races and you're chaotic. Typically, when you do that, the rest of your day flows in some sort of chaos. And when you get ready to go to bed at night, don't just crash and go to sleep. For most people, we crash, we go to sleep. Televisions are on, televisions are on, so they're telling us a vision while we're
mm.
sleeping. Um, we don't take the time out to say, okay, it's time for me to go to bed. Let me take a minute to have some quiet time, meditate, read something inspirational, take my subconscious to a place that's conducive for rest. Most people don't take that time to do that. So if nothing else, if you don't have any other daily routines, I always say start and end in a certain way and do it consistently.
That's a good point because I can definitely agree with that, especially that I recently had a schedule change where I was used to work overnight
Hmm.
and there was no start and end for me. It was like a nap in the middle of the day, but there was no official
Right.
start and end for my day. And now that I'm on a better schedule, I definitely start my day in peace. You
Right.
know, silence, meditation, devotion, and I end the same way. No screens, but just
Right.
in calm. And I've noticed, even in these past 4 weeks, I've noticed a drastic difference with my attitude, with my mood, as well as my energy level, and less
Yeah.
caffeine.
And less caffeine. Less caffeine works too. That definitely works. But no, I mean, everything is connected. The inner you is controlling the outer you. Everything about your life. If you have an attitude, if you're snappy all the time, if you're angry, if you're mad, it's connected to something. And
Mm-hmm.
most of the time, it starts with that. It starts with your lack of rest. It starts with the lack of a routine, which soon produces pain in your physical body. It produces health issues. It produces all of these things that now become a spiral, and then you start to spiral out of control. And now, you start to feel stressed and you feel frustrated, or in our wonderful community, I just feel some type of way. Nobody knows what that means, but
It
I
is what
love
it
it. I
is.
love it. It's just like I just feel some type of way. What does that mean? It just means that you now have a routine that's not conducive for life. It's not
Mm,
conducive for real happiness.
okay. Entrepreneurship, why is that so important?
Wow. Entrepreneurship, to me, entrepreneurship, it's everything to me, because for me, entrepreneurship represented how I could take these images of what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be out of my head and live them. But the entrepreneurship part came in because there is this one small aspect of life that you do have to take care of, and it's called making money and paying bills and having somewhere to live, and all of that stuff. So a lot of times I just look at entrepreneurship as being able to create an income off of something that you just love to do. That's how I define entrepreneurship. A lot of people, I want to start a business, but do you love it though?
Yeah.
And to me, that's what entrepreneurship is. It's being able to say, okay, I found something that I love. I found something that I'll do for free. Because I would coach every single day for free. It's just that other little small aspect of, I do have to live somewhere and I got to eat and all of that stuff. So it's really just finding a way to create an income off of something that you love.
Yeah. And I tell people all the time, like, I love what I do, the podcast, coaching, speaking. I love all of that. And a lot of this is a variation of free stuff, but pricing is a formality.
Right.
And I was like, look, I can't line the 10 people I've had coaching sessions with this month. I can't line y'all up and take you to my leasing office and be like, hey,
this is true. This is true.
I've coached these 10 people
right.
at $100 a pop, cover my rent. And it's like, we got to eat. Like, and just like you need money, I need money. And pricing or money is just the exchange of value.
Exactly.
Whether it's a product or a service. A lot of people.
And I've had people ask me that though. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you go ahead.
No, I've had people ask me that. Well, if you love it so much, why don't you do it for free? And honestly, I have. In the beginning, I've coached for free. I've done speaking engagements for free. That's kind of where you start. But like you said, after a while, it becomes the value of your time. It becomes the value of your energy, because if you're working with me with coaching, I'm going all in. I'm giving you 110%. Like, I'm not just waking up and getting on a coaching call and just spewing some stuff out of my head. Like, I'm working on strategies before we get on that call. Like, I'm doing all types of stuff, which at the end of the day, even if I love it, it still becomes work.
Right.
And you should get paid for work. So yeah.
Yeah. And I don't just think about this 1 hour that I'm sitting with you, but it was probably an hour before we met. It's going to be an hour after we met. But yeah, pricing our services or exchanging that value when it comes to entrepreneurship, it becomes very interesting. It becomes very interesting. I'm going through that cycle.
Yeah, but you have to educate people. I've had clients that'll say, "Oh, I don't want to pay for this," and I'm like, "But think about it. You're gonna pay for something. Everything in this world has a price attached to it." I used to talk about the price versus the promise. You can have the promise if you're willing to pay the price. The price is not always a monetary price, but everything in this world has some sort of price attached to it. I think when it comes down to services that we pay for, we're paying for the learning curve. So if plumbing goes bad at my house, I can learn how to do plumbing. Trust me, I've tried. But yeah, I've tried. But the time that it takes me to learn to do plumbing, the 18 YouTube videos that I had to watch, I'm talking about a personal situation right now, but the 18 YouTube videos that I had to watch, and then when I messed up something, guess what? It was really worth the $400 or $500 that I should have just spent in the beginning, to just have somebody who, this is all you do. You came in here and in 15 minutes you fixed a problem that it took me a week and a half to learn about and then attempt to do it wrong. Yeah. So a lot of times when you're paying for something, you're paying for the value of the learning curve. Like, hey, I could go through the next 10 months learning what RJ knows about business and business consulting and entrepreneurship and how to transition from a full-time job to a full-time entrepreneur. I could go learn all of that. Maybe. But it might take you another year, because I've been doing this for over 10 years. So it might take you another 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years. Or you can cut that in half and invest in yourself and get it in the next 6 weeks.
Oh, yeah. Time versus money. Time versus money.
Definitely.
So with the beauty of entrepreneurship, a lot of people feel like it's glamorized. What do you think is the number one thing that upcoming and new entrepreneurs, or entrepreneurs in general, neglect?
The biggest thing, and I'm running a whole campaign right now. I just started like a week ago, and I've gotten an amazing response, and that's what I'm calling it. The number one thing Number one thing that entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs often neglect, and I always say it's the number one thing that if you do neglect it, it'll kill you and your business. And it goes back to what we've been talking about. It's mastering yourself. It's understanding that entrepreneurship is less about the external strategies and more about the internal strategies. Because most of the time when a person becomes an entrepreneur, we invest and we focus on all of the external strategies. So you got to get somebody to help you do marketing. You got to get somebody to help you do branding. You got to get a website. It's got to be pretty. You got to get new pictures done. You got to get new outfits. You got to get a desk. You got to get all of these things, in which I'm not saying that these things are not important, because they're needed. But sometimes we major so much on those external strategies that at the end of the day, we don't have any internal strategies. Because being an entrepreneur for as long as I've been an entrepreneur, the one thing that I can guarantee you is every external strategy that you have, it will change. It will never stay the same. Right now, the external strategy for most entrepreneurs is sales funnels. Everybody got a sales funnel out there. Everybody got, we're marketing on social media, and I love it. I'm involved. I'm trying to get involved. I'm putting stuff out there too, because it's a great way to market. But think about it. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, nobody was doing this.
Right.
10 years ago, nobody was talking about sales funnels. And I will be honest with you, the way everybody's jumping in, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, nobody will be talking about it either. It'll be gone. So if you never develop the internal strategy to become the entrepreneur, to become the person who can create the ideas, to become the person that has overcome their own level of hindrances, then you've neglected the number one step to entrepreneurship. Because out of all of the great entrepreneurs and successful people that I've been around, that's the one common denominator. It was never about the external strategy that they were using today. It was always about them. It was always about who they were and how savvy they were and their ideas and how they weren't afraid to create and how they had overcome fear and they weren't afraid to move in this way. That was what made them successful. The external strategy was just something that was good to use for the time.
Like, that is so powerful to me, because I mentioned this in a recent episode where when I was younger, I prayed for the spirit of discernment. And I feel like I had that, and kind of proved itself again yesterday. But entrepreneurship, oh my God, like, it has sped up my self-awareness, and like, I am so in tune with my crazy right now. It's ridiculous.
Okay. I am in tune with my crazy. Now I'm going to steal that from you. I give you partial credit for it. I like that. That's
and
good.
I wonder like, if I would have experienced all of this emotion and confusion and conclusion, if I was in corporate, because I feel like in corporate, for me, in finance, heavily regulated industry, it was so structured.
Right.
And even though it's scenario-based jobs, when it comes to, people, oh my God, dealing with money, investments, and death, every situation is different. So I think that really helped with me dealing with people. But as an entrepreneur, where you have to go out and hunt every day.
You don't kill, you don't eat. That is the number one rule to entrepreneurship. If you don't kill, you don't eat.
Right. And then sometimes, you're coming across people, but you ain't killing and nothing, you're not bringing nothing home. You like, okay, what's wrong? What did I do? I shouldn't. Oh my, yeah. So yeah, I'm very in tune with my crazy.
But here's the difference though. Entrepreneurship brings about a level of you that you never knew existed.
Yeah.
Because entrepreneurship, it is about creativity. It is about mastering yourself. It is about being able to master your emotions and overcoming the fear and the rejection and all of that. You don't have to do that in corporate America. But here's the funny thing about corporate America. You don't have to do it in corporate America because another entrepreneur already did it for you.
I love it. Yeah.
So everything is entrepreneurship. There's no such thing as not entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Corporate America was born out of entrepreneurship because whatever company you work for, it took some visionary to somewhere way back when start that company. And they started it from the foundation, from the ground up, and they went through all of the, in other words, one of my mentors used to say, somebody cut down all of the trees first, or they went out and got shot first, so you didn't have to. So now when you go to your job, it is structured. You
That's
don't really have
true.
to think. When I worked in corporate America, I didn't have to think that much. You know what I mean? Some things you had to think on, but for the most part, I went there. I was told what to do. I was
Mm-hmm.
trained on what to do, and I just came there every single day for 8 hours, and I did it, and I got a check for it. But the rude awakening is that when you become an entrepreneur, you now have to become the person that creates the structure and the training and
Yeah.
all of this stuff for yourself. That takes internal strategy, it takes growth, and it takes a whole hell of a lot of personal development.
Oh, and we developing over here, cause
Right. Hey,
yeah,
stay the course, man. It's a ride. I always
it
say,
is.
entrepreneurship is it's a personal development course with a compensation plan attached if you do it right. But every day, and I mess up on something every day.
Oh
And
yeah.
I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, but I mess up on something every single day, or I see a way I could have did something better every single day. But the mindset has to become, you know what? This is the life I chose. I'm going to peacefully go to sleep tonight, and I'm going to wake up in the morning. I'm going to give this thing my all over again.
Now I go back and forth with reading the one thing, and it talks about time blocking and all this kind of stuff. And I'm starting to realize it's like, okay, Michelle, are you busy? Are you productive? What are you doing?
Right.
So, in your what's your definition between those two?
Oh man, I read something earlier this morning that says, "Do not wear busy as a badge."
Mm,
And it kind of stuck. You read stuff and it sticks with you because I think everybody's busy. Everybody's busy. It's easy to be busy. Life is busy. Life is demanding, so it's busy. But I think busy is all of the cute stuff. Busy is like I said before. I'm picking blue for my website. I got okay. I don't want those pens. I want the purple ones with the ballpoint on the back. And I need a new webcam and all of those things are necessary. But the difference of what I was taught is productive is I made a sale, I
mm,
closed something out, or I added value to somebody's life. Point blank, period. That's productive. Busy is all of the necessary background items that just comes with that. So it depends on your industry, it depends on what you're doing. But for me, being a coach and a speaker and somebody that wants to touch and empower people, my productive is how many lives did I touch today? And you can do that in a multiple ways. Did I record any videos that I put out? If I can get with 2 likes, there's 2 people that life is a little bit different because I chose to put this message out. How many coaching sessions did I do today? How many consults did I do today? Advising people on why coaching would be good for them and giving them necessary tips so they can start doing now. That's how I judge what's productive. Now, did I put all of the files on my computer into my logo folder? Did I take my background picture off of Skype and change it with something else? That's business stuff. And that's good. Don't get me wrong. But if you start to confuse the two,
yeah.
you'll end up really, really busy, and not very productive. So you gotta look at whatever you do and whatever industry you're in. But at the end of the day, whatever industry you're in, whatever you're selling, did you sell it today? Did you
Sh-
at least attempt to sell it? Did you talk to anybody about selling it? Not,
Okay.
I set up myself to sell it, which is you gotta do that part, but you
Mm.
gotta you gotta weigh out your time on both sides.
Should we find a way to align our productivity with our goals and measure that?
Yes, I truly believe that every single day that you wake up, you should have daily objectives for what you're doing today. That's one of the things I ask my clients. What are your objectives for today? Because if you don't have objectives for today, I don't know what you're doing. You don't know what you're doing. You know, I mean, that's just, to me. If somebody right now, I'm looking at a pad in front of me, and it has a list of objectives that are very specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely on this page. SMART goals. You know, I didn't make that up. Somebody else did, but I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate them. But if you don't have those type of objectives daily, then what are you doing? It's very easy to become busy when you don't have productive objectives. So every single day, you should have at least bare minimum 3 to 5 objectives that flow into something productive for your business. Even if you're working in corporate America still and you just have a part-time business, every single day you should have at least 3 goals that are productive for your business. And I work with clients a lot about how to weave that into your schedule, but you definitely should do that, because if not, then how do you not? Because busy could be, I'm sitting here, I don't have any objectives, and the phone rings and somebody wants me to come do something. Or, I'm sitting here and then all of a sudden, I notice that, man, the Norton virus thing on my computer popped up. I need to do that. Like, let me click on that and go through the downloads and da 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 da. Let me go through all that. That's busy, but you're only distracted by busy stuff when you don't have a set objective for the time that you're in. Because see, if I know from noon until 1 o'clock or whatever time I'm doing a radio interview,
Yeah.
then it's very hard for me to get distracted by a phone call because
Right.
the phone is not around me. It's very hard for me to get distracted by, man, I really need to clean the blender. Like, I really need to do that, because if I do that, I can make more smoothies and I could be more healthy. And, these are the busy things that come up when you don't have objectives. Or if you work a corporate American job and you're building a part-time business, if you don't have objectives, you can easily waste 20 minutes standing over there by, the little coffee break area,
Mm-hmm.
talking to somebody about absolutely nothing, because you ain't have an objective anyway. When I was in corporate America, when I finally realized this, I go get something to drink. I got to go. Hey, let me talk to you. Let me talk to you later. Because I know, look, man, I only got 20 minutes free. I got to make 2 calls.
Right.
This is my objective for today. So I truly, truly believe in that.
Do what you love and the money will follow.
Yes, 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 yes. That's something that, I fight with a lot of people on, because they'll say, like, RJ, are you opposed to making money? Absolutely not. I am opposed to chasing money. Because I chased it for years and I never caught it. And every time I meet somebody who's like, I'm out here chasing money, I'm like, how long? Like, how long have you been chasing? Because a chase and a pursuit, you should catch at some point. But I finally figured out that, again, money is something that we need in our society, just because that's the way our society is structured. It's a medium of exchange for goods and services that we need. But money is not the highest value. It's just not. Success is something that we've made synonymous with making a lot of money, but we see now that that's not true, because you have people with a lot of money that's miserable and end up doing detrimental things to themselves. So I think once you understand that, you understand fulfillment and happiness, and doing something that you love is really the highest level of compensation you could ever get. And when you start to focus on that, you give your all to it. You give your whole entire being to it. And it's amazing when you put your whole entire being into something, somebody else will see the value in you and they'll be willing to monetarily compensate you for it, if that makes sense.
That does. That does. There's two things that's occurring right now. I had a chance to interview George Fraser. He was, I think, my first or my second interview. And this quote has resonated. He said, chase excellence, never chase money. One, because everyone's already chasing money. And excellence is rare. And, of course, the money will follow. And then two, during this interview, my friend, not even a client, but a colleague of mine, has just sent me money in order for me to take care of some of my business needs, since I have like 4 speaking events this month.
Wow.
Unexpected. Unexpected.
That's it. I mean, because now you're adding value to somebody.
Right.
And you cannot add value without somebody and the universe seeing that, wow, this person is adding value. Now your worth rises, and you don't have to, because most of the time in business, we're out here trying to tell somebody our worth. You're trying to tell somebody, I do this and I'm worth this amount, pay me. And yeah, that works sometimes, but when you just add value, people know your worth. I had a coaching client earlier this year, and when I told her how much services were going to be, she heard me on a local radio station here in Atlanta. And when we talked, and I told her how much services were going to be for coaching, she said, "RJ, you got to be joking." She said, "I got to pay you more than that." And I was like, "Well, we can do something now. Let's talk about, But it was funny to me because I had just raised my coaching fees, to be honest. I mean, literally, I try to be, pretty decent on prices as much as humanly possible. But I had just raised my coaching fees, and she said, "RJ, wow." She was like, "I feel like I'm getting the deal of a lifetime." And it just hit me. I'm like, wow, like, and I asked her, I said, "Well, tell me, I'm just curious, why do you feel like that?" She said, "Because I heard you on this show and I heard you talking, and I could understand not just the magnitude of you know what you're doing, but I could just hear the passion, and I knew what I was gonna get from you." And she said, "I just figured like I was just gonna have to take out a loan to be able to pay you." And I'm like, wow. She was like, yeah. She was like, I had already made it up in my mind. She was like, if I got to max out my American Express to take out a loan, he gonna be my coach. And I'm thinking, she was like, so that's the type of price I was expecting. And I was like, okay, note taken. I'm gonna raise these things again. No, I'm just playing, but it was, but it blew me away, and it just it allowed me to understand that out of all of the things in the world, adding value to somebody's life is something that it'll never grow old, and it's something that you'll always be handsomely rewarded for.
How much time do you have?
What time is it? Let's see. I got a couple minutes.
Couple minutes? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I want us to get into your books and then close.
Forgot all about the books. Yeah,
I know.
Let's do that.
Like, I'm trying to. I just paused it, but yeah. I mean, yeah. I just want to get that in there. About another 15, 20 minutes.
I do. I got 15.
15? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So RJ, you got 2 books. One with George Fraser and Les Brown. Mission Unstoppable. Go ahead and tell us about that real quick.
The Mission Unstoppable book, it was really a blessing. I was networking, which is the theme of your show, which is great. I was networking with a gentleman that I've known for years. We met back up on LinkedIn, and over maybe the course of a year, we just stayed in contact and continued to network, which this is the power of networking. And I'm speaking to him one day, and I'm telling him that I'm writing a book and all of this stuff. And he said, Les Brown and George Fraser are doing a co-author book. You should be a part of it. And my response was like, yeah, I think so, but it was a hypothetical conversation. Then he goes, I tell you what, when I hang up, I'm going to text you George Fraser's number. I want you to call him directly. Tell him I told you to call, and tell him I said that he needs to really consider you to be a part of this book. And I'm like, okay, that's funny. You know what I mean? Like that. Right. I'm going to call somebody out of the blue who I don't really know. I had met George, honestly, probably like 10, 15 years prior, but of course I didn't know him at the time. But anyway, long story short, I did it. I called George. He was in an airport. We jumped on the phone for a couple of minutes, and he said, RJ, I'm about to get on a plane. When I land, is this a good number to call you back on? I said, yeah, sure. We hung up, and I really kind of dismissed it, to be perfectly honest. So this is my limitation coming in. So I dismissed it, and I said it was great to at least talk to George Fraser. I don't expect a call back. I really don't. Literally, I mean, I'm not sure if the wheels were on the ground good. My phone rung because I could still hear the people in the cabin and the flight attendants talking on the plane, and he called me back. And we had a conversation, and I became a part of this co-author book, Mission Unstoppable, which is extraordinary stories of failures, blessings. And the book just really talks about the things that we call impossible, or the things that we call failure, that it's really not. It's
Mm.
just really growth. It's just really the things that we need to equip us on this journey. And, I always tell people, if you're trying to go to 12th grade, you'll never get there unless you go to elementary school. Then you got to go to middle school. And then you got to go to ninth grade
The
and 10th grade.
process.
And if by some means you go from fifth grade to 12th grade, something is going to be lacking.
Mm.
You miss something somewhere between fifth and 12th. You miss something. Even if you're a genius, you at least missed out on some social skills. Something is going
Right.
to be lacking. So, that's what the book is about. It's a lot of great leaders that were chosen from throughout the country, and everybody has an amazing story of how they actually overcome what we deem as failure and turned it into something that today we would consider a masterpiece.
All right, we're coming to well, first of all, congratulations, because I love George Fraser and Les Brown together. That's definitely a force to be reckoned
Yeah,
with.
you can't beat that. You can't
Right.
beat that. That's one of those. I say, like, that's one of my lifetime achievement awards right there. Like,
Absolutely.
that's a good one. I love the fact that I was able to be a part of that project.
So we'll definitely have that in the show notes as well as your other books. Now,
Mhm.
I'm kind of curious because I usually end the show, well, I do end the show with saying defining success. But before that, you said that success is part of a system. And
Mhm.
I want to hear your insight on that.
My other book, which is You Can't Practice at the Game, The Art of Mastering You, Volume 1. Everything I really
Mm-hmm.
talk about is about mastering yourself. And there's a chapter in the book that's called Success is a Part of a System. And it kind of talks about what we've been talking about. And that, to me, is success is birthed from the inside out.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a system. It's not something that, oh, it's just a great saying. It's really a system. Everything that you want to see outside of you, it has to first and foremost be manufactured inside of you.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever it is, so let's just say hypothetically you want to be a doctor. You need to be a doctor right now. Everything about you needs to be a doctor. You need to talk doctor talk. You need to be able to sign those weird doctor signatures. I don't care if you're in the 10th grade. It needs to be a part of you. And sometimes you can meet people that externally they haven't reached the level of what they say they want, but you can just see it in them. You
Wow.
know what I mean? You can see it. I met a young man, this was some years ago, and he was probably 14, 15 years old, and he said, RJ, I want to be a pastor. He was like, I want to pastor my own church. And I said, okay. And the more I talked to him, I'm like, boy, you about to make me cry, because he was preaching. I mean, he wasn't trying to. He wasn't trying to preach, but he was preaching.
He had
Every
it.
word he said, he was like, yeah, because in Mark chapter 2, verse 5, they said da da da. And I'm looking at him like, whoa, like, you are what you say you are.
Mm.
And we got to a point in the conversation. He said, I'm just pushing myself to one day be a pastor. And I stopped him and I said, you're not pushing yourself to one day be anything, sir. You are that right now. Because everything about him, he was a 14, 15-year-old preacher. I was like, how do your friends stand you? I know you casting out demons and setting people free. You're doing all kind of stuff in the lunchroom at school. That's crazy. But I could see it in him. It was not a question. So success is a part of a system. And I teach a lot about how to construct that internal system, your belief system, the way you think, the way you move, the way you act, the way you respond, your attitude. All of that is a part of your internal system for the external success that everybody is out here trying to create. The only slightly dilemma in this is that we're taught to create success from the outside in versus from the inside out. So we start out with a
That's
lot of
true.
things that are outside of us. And sometimes those things give you a sneak peek of success, or they'll help you make money. But as we established, money is not all success is. And the last thing I think that anybody wants is to amass a whole lot of wealth and truly not be happy. I mean, think about that. Think about getting all of the money that you ever wanted, and you bought your mama a house, and you bought your daddy a house, and you bought your cousin a house, and you got 16 cars, but you're depressed. That to me has to be the worst feeling in the world. to finally have all the money you ever thought, but still this money can't answer whatever it is that's not making you happy and fulfilled. You got to build it from the inside out.
Right. So in that case, how do you define success?
Fulfillment.
Fulfillment?
Fulfillment. And I think fulfillment is something that has to be personally defined, but I think success is fulfillment. And I think success is more than one area of fulfillment. So you need some spiritual success, meaning that whatever that means for you, you need to be spiritually sound in some kind of way. You need some financial success because finances go with it as well. You need some relationship success. You don't want to have all the money in the world, but nobody likes you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you at the beach, but you by yourself. Like, how does that work out? So you need some relationship success. You also need some health success. Money can buy medicine, but it can't buy real health. So you need some health success. It's a lot of different components that you gotta look at when you start talking about success. But the one thing that I ask myself and I ask clients is all of those areas, what fulfills you? Relationship wise, what fulfills you? Spiritual wise, what fulfills you? Monetary wise, what fulfills you? Mission wise, what fulfills you? Because you can make money in something most of the time you can make money in something you don't like.
That's true.
And then the money goes away because you can't motivate yourself to keep doing that on a regular basis. It's hard to do something continuously that you just don't like. Most people quit their job. I've seen people, with great quote unquote jobs that'll tell me, man, I walked out and I quit. And I'm like, man, you make six figures. How did you walk out and quit? Because, man, I hate it. Like I can't drag myself to there not another day. Like people that literally didn't have any more money left, didn't have a savings and was like, look, if it means I'll be homeless, I'd rather be homeless and happy and not have to go to that place. And I'm like, that's pretty deep. So I think when people start talking about success, because money tends to sort of outweigh other things, we kind of put the base of our focus there. But you got to look at all of these other areas of your life and invest just as much time and energy in those areas as you do in the money part of it.
RJ, this has been absolutely amazing interview. How can people get in touch with you?
Hey, I'm on all social media as RJ Hodges Speaks. It's all one word. So like my Facebook page, I'm on Twitter. I got YouTube videos under RJ Hodges Speaks. And of course, my website is rjhodgesspeaks.com. And actually, since I'm here, can I give away something to your audience?
Of course.
All right, cool. Here's what I'll give away to your audience. If you go to my site, rjhodgesspeaks.com, and you get either one of the books, because I think you guys need to really check out these books, not because I wrote them, but because there's some information in there that I think it just came channeled through me. So you get any one of these books, You Can't Practice at the Game, The Art of Mastering You, Volume 1, or the Mission Unstoppable book. I'll make sure you get an autographed copy, but I'll also give you a free 20-minute virtual coaching consultation with me. And back when I first needed a coach in my life, if somebody had did a free coaching consultation with me, I would have been ecstatic, because back then you had to pay just to get 5 minutes with a coach. But on this 20-minute free coaching consult, we'll talk about who you are, where you are, and where you're aspiring to be. I'll give you some helpful hints, and I'll even tell you how further coaching can really be, extremely beneficial to you. So, take advantage of that, you guys. I would love to talk to you guys, connect with you, and kind of find out what you guys are into and up to, and we can go from there.
Thank you so much for your generosity and providing so much value on this interview. This past hour has been amazing, so I can only imagine what a full coaching session or even a 20-minute session with you is like. Hey, everyone.
Hey, make it fun, I promise.
Hey, everyone. As always, I want to thank you for tuning in. Remember two things. I believe in you, and a personal connection leads to an influential network. Thanks for networking with Michelle.